Hey there everyone, Sage here, and we're out on the land this morning picking some elderberries. It's elderberry season, one of my favorite times of year, coming around the ending of summertime, and these berries are looking really good, so we're picking elderberries today to put up a spagyric tincture of them, and just wanted to talk a little bit about elderberry. But before that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of me and Whitney's personal wildcrafting practice a little bit. Um, for us, one of the joys of the work that we do is going out into the wild and going out into our gardens and harvesting the herbs, taking them into the lab and preparing them in the spagyric methods. But one of the ways that we really like to work with the plants whenever we're harvesting them is just really taking that time to honor the intelligence and the sacredness of the spirit of the plant. And so, when we go out to wildcraft, we don't just go up and just start digging or start picking right away. We always like to take that time to, really honor and acknowledge the plant and its presence on the land and its not just medicinal virtues and functions, but its ecological function too, right? That medicinal herbs have relationships far beyond just the human to plant interaction, but they have an ecological function and I believe a spiritual function too, not just in the way they relate with our spirit, but with the whole spirit of the mountain or the valley or the ecosystem that it resides in. And so whenever we pick plants, we'll always really take that time to just sit with them and pay attention to them and make offerings to them and pray to them and in that way really calling upon that vitality and that virtue and that intelligence and the spirit of the plant that it'll be present in the whole process of extraction into every bottle, right? And so that when someone ingests that plant, that they're not just getting the physical constituents, but they're also getting that vitality, that spirit, that intelligence of the plant and of the ecosystem that plant resides in. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. It's something we don't really mention too much in these videos, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more about our kind of our wildcrafting practices, and that we really do take that time to honor that spirit and to tend to it in that way as well. So the elderberry, this is one of the plants that I kind of have the deepest relationships with as far as sitting with them. And when I was at school at Bastyr, there's this one elder tree that I sat with just about every day for a really long time. And so this is one of those plants that I just have a really deep resonance and connection with. So I'm really excited to be working with it. And today we're picking the berries. Of course, the flowers can also be used. They're very different medicines, the flowers and the berries of elder. The berries we see primarily used as for the immune system, right? It's a kind of pretty common knowledge that elderberries are good for coughs and colds and flus and things like that. But one of the things that we see in this particular species, so this is the Sambucus cerulea, which is the blue elderberry, and one of the things that we notice in the signatures of the elder is that you'll notice that there's these kind of the parts of the stems where the berries grow out of start to turn a dark purple, purplish bluish color, which the blue purple color tends to be signatures for blood stagnation. We see that in things like varicose veins or really deep sepsis and putrefaction in the tissues, kind of cold, damp, stagnant tissue states. That purple color tends to be a signature for remedies that help to move that stagnant blood. And you can typically see that in a person too when you're evaluating, right? If you look at someone's tongue and you see purple and blue colors on the tongue, if they didn't like eat beets or blueberries or something like that, that's an indication of that blood stagnation. And we see a lot of our purple blue colored plants tend to move blood stagnation, right? We have echinacea is like that, poke root is like that, blue flag is like that, and elderberry is like that too. Another one of the signatures that we see with the elder is a hollow stem. And the hollow stemmed plants typically indicate remedies that work on the tubules of the body. So whether that's the bronchial tubes or whether that's the arterioles, the circulatory system, and working through the tubules. And of course we see with the elder, it has a really strong affinity for the blood itself, but also for the respiratory tract. That's why it's used so much in syrups, right? As an elderberry syrup, just making a strong tea preserved with honey and sometimes a little bit of alcohol is an incredible way of delivering the remedy, giving it more of an affinity for the respiratory tract because honey or sugar by its very nature is demulcent, soothing, moistening in quality. And then it's interesting, like looking at the tips of these, they really look a lot like alveoli, the alveoli of the lungs. You have this hollow tube, like a bronchiole, branching into all these smaller bronchioles and ultimately terminating in these little berries, which to me look very similar to the alveolar sacs in the lungs where the gas exchange is happening. So one of the things, kind of to speak a bit more on a scientific level, that has been studied with the berries of elder specifically, is that it's a very potent antiviral. And it's interesting the way in which elder does that because, okay, so the way viruses work, it's kind of scary, but basically what viruses do is on the surface of a virus, they have enzymes which basically dissolve part of our cell wall and enables the virus to invade the cell, dock onto our DNA, and then use our own genetic code to replicate more viruses. Kind of scary. But what's really cool about elderberry is that they've done a lot of research on it and shown that there's certain compounds in the berries that will actually deactivate that enzyme on the surface of the viral cell that disables its ability to dissolve our cell wall and thereby invade the cell. So I think that's really interesting in the way that at a cellular level, elder is protecting us, right? It's protecting us from viral infection. And that's just kind of a molecular perspective of what the overarching spirit of elder does, which is, in my opinion, one of the best protection medicines for our spirit too, in the way that it just kind of gives us that clear boundary, that energetic boundary, protecting our minds, protecting our hearts, but protecting our bodies too. And that's one of the ways elder has been used for a very long time in folk traditions all throughout Europe as a very good, strong protection medicine. People that kind of get under like psychic attack, or they're really sensitive and kind of picking up on other people's stuff, that elder's really good for setting up that clear boundary. And I really consider elder to be a wisdom remedy. I mean, I think it's called elder for a reason, right? I mean, it's just this remedy holds so much knowledge about healing and herbalism and how to use plants in a healing way. To me, it's one of those plants that teaches about other plants and teaches about how to use plants. And I think it's just an incredible remedy for any person practicing plant medicine or interested in plants to really work with it, right? To really engage with it through the heart and dream with it and vision with it and harvest it and prepare it and ingest it. It's just an incredible remedy to become acquainted with, and it's one that we personally use quite a bit in the Organic Unity Lab, but also in just our personal practice as well as herbalists. So then, to discuss a little bit of the energetic architecture of elder, astrologically we see that it is primarily ruled by a couple different planets. First off, we see that it's ruled by Mars because of its action on the immune system, that protection dynamic with elder. The flowers are used as a diaphoretic in fever, which is ruled by Mars. But then also the berries are very rich in flavonoids. I mean, anytime you see a dark colored berry or fruit like this, it's indicative of bioflavonoids, which are very cooling, anti-inflammatory constituents that help to protect the body from oxidative damage or inflammation or heat, right? So that's another Mars correspondence. And then we see that in the leaves. You see the sharp serrated leaf margins, and then the sharp tip that the leaves come to. That's a very strong Mars signature there, because Mars rules sharpness and intensity and kind of sharp pointedness like that. So that's another good indication of a Mars remedy when you see kind of that sharpness on plants. So those are some of the Mars correspondences, but then we also see on more of the that's kind of looking at elder more from a physical standpoint. When we look at the spirit of this plant, it's really a Saturnian remedy. And one of the ways we see Saturn in the morphology of the plant is that you'll see this old growth kind of coming and arching over like that dies, and then new growth springing forth from that. So there's this kind of death and rebirth dynamic with the elder that we see, and of course that makes the glyph of Saturn, right? Like the part that goes up and then kind of this arching down, it looks just like the planetary symbol for Saturn. And then we see really Saturn holds that that archetype of death and rebirth when we're looking at astrology from a 7-planet model. And elder really on that soul level, that spiritual level, really holds this very deep initiatic virtue that guides us through kind of a death and rebirth process where we're dying to old parts of the self and being reborn into who we really are. And in my experience with elder, it's this powerful initiation of kind of moving to the next phase of our growth and development and letting go of maybe childlike parts or childish parts of the self, old patterns that we've been carrying that we picked up through our ancestral lineage, and really instilling that wisdom into our heart and into our mind, that you know, we all need elders in our life, right? And to me, this is such a like a botanical reflection of grandma and grandpa in a way, and that benevolent but yet firm wisdom and healing that this plant gives. So just wanted to spend a little time, shoot a little video here talking about one of my favorite plants. This is Elderberry, Sambucus, cerulea, and we're going to be putting up a couple gallons of Spagyric tincture in the lab today of this exact elderberries here. So if you're watching this anywhere but the blog, head on over to evolutionaryherbalism.com. That's where everything is happening. Tons of free content on there. Lots of information and free goodies. So head on over there to check it out, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.